This is a dollar bill which says the United States of America. On the back it reads, "In God we trust." Oliver Stone, at the end of his film, Wall Street Money Never Sleeps, has a dollar bill coming up which reads, "In greed we trust." That's the transformation that has happened in America, a nation that trusted in God and began to trust in greed, a Christian capitalism that has now become secular capitalism and is causing the decline of American economy and American society. So tonight we are going to review three films: Wall Street by Oliver Stone, Wall Street Money Never Sleeps, the sequel, and third film by Charles Ferguson, a documentary called Inside Job that looks closely at what exactly caused the crash of 2007 and 2008. America was a great nation. The difference between North and South America was the people who came from Europe to North America wanted to see God. They found both God and gold. The people from Europe who came and settled South and Central America, they were looking for gold, and they ended up without God and without gold. Now America has decided to not put its trust in God, but in greed. Is that a factor causing the decline of America that we are calling in this series, Must the Sun Set on the West? So that's this question, and as we will see today, the Ten Commandments begin with God affirming this is His covenant with a nation of Israel, that I want this nation to become a great nation. You will become a great nation if you live by my law. And the first commandment was that I am the Lord your God who brought you out of slavery into freedom. And this is how you're going to preserve your freedom. So God introduces Himself as a God who is liberator. What happens when the most foundational of those 10 commandments, the last commandment, is turned upside down? Thou shalt not covet is turned into greed is good. You shall covet. Now that's the story of these films. Wall Street, 1987. Wall Street Money Never Sleeps, that's 2010, looking at the crash of 2007-2008, the crash of Wall Street and the whole economic system. And Inside Job, which is documenting what Oliver Stone has done in these two films, in looking inside Hollywood, how is it functioning, and turned it into a story, fiction, but a fiction that is true to life, that this is actually how Hollywood is running. But the Inside Job by Charles Ferguson, which won an Oscar for Best Feature Documentary, it documents that exactly that what Wall Street and Oliver Stone are saying in these fictionalized films is in fact what has caused the crash of Wall Street that hurt millions of people, and we haven't come out of it. The world hasn't come out of that crash as yet, though things for the moment are looking better. So that's the summary of what we're going to do this evening. So let's, for those of you who have watched the films, who is the hero of the first Wall Street by Oliver Stone, the first film? Who is the hero?
The guy named Bud.
Bud is the hero. Who is the villain?
Gordon Gekko.
You said that Bud Fox is the hero. What makes him a hero? Is he different than the villain?
In the sense that he has a desire to attain, what he wants to, get, money. He wants to become wealthy. He wants to become successful on Wall Street. He's not different. And the way he attains this at first, his outlook on how he's going to attain it is different. But it's not until Gekko takes him under his wing that he really becomes like Gekko, and then that greed eventually causes his downfall to an extent.
So, for those of you who haven't seen the film, Gordon Gekko is a very successful Wall Street insider who is a corporate raider who raids companies, buys them, dismantles them, sells them, makes a lot of money, And in order to buy the companies, he finds out, gets the insider information of which companies the stocks are low and it's good to buy them, and with companies that are about to, whose stock is going to go up. So he obtains insider information, which is illegal, and we will consider why it's illegal. And so with through foul means, that he has an advantage which other players in the stock market don't have an advantage. So he keeps talking about information. We are in an information age. Information is money. So he wants to make money. Now, Bud Fox is the son of a mechanic with Blue Star Airline, and his father is a good, typical, old-fashioned American who is hardworking, honest, diligent worker. But the son is not happy with working hard and making a little bit of money. He wants to make big money soon, fast. So he pursues, make cold calls to Gordon Gekko's office, that I want to talk to Gordon Gekko for 5 minutes. So after weeks and weeks of trying, he gets his 5 minutes, and he gives this inside information that Blue Star Airline, which has been going down because of a court case, that court case is coming to an end. It will be exonerated, so the stocks will go up. So Gordon Gekko buys, but he buys his Bud Fox's father's airline in order to break it up and sell it. And Bud is thinking that he's going to help revive this airline. So it's this inside information which makes him successful, but he really doesn't care for anything, because what's driving him is money. So Bud Fox teams up with him, begins to learn these dirty tricks, how to succeed, and does succeed. But finally, the whole success drives Bud's father to heart attack, and that turns Bud against Gordon Gekko. And then he's arrested because he's manipulating the stock market, because he has inside information. So he's manipulating the stock market to destroy Gekko. Gekko gets mad at him, but in the process confesses, as Gekko is hitting Bud Fox, he confesses his own crimes. It's there alone, but this guy has a recorder, so he's recording the Gekko's confession. So they both basically have been breaking the law, but Gekko has been so smart that this recording finally gets him arrested. He's thrown in jail for these breaking the law about using insider information to use fraud. He's in jail for 8 years. In the second film, the sequel, he comes out after 8 years. That's the story of Money Never Sleeps. And that's made in 2010. 2007 and 2008 is the crash of Wall Street, which has been driven by that film. Now, not just by that film, and we will go behind the film and beneath the film. Film was not, I'm not accusing Oliver Stone or Wall Street film as the cause of Wall Street's crash and capitalism crash. Oliver Stone did a tremendous service as a mirror. He's reflecting what's happening to American culture, what's happening to American economy, what's happening to capitalism. So it's a reflection, true reflection of what is happening. Very well researched, very well done. And Michael Douglas, who plays Gordon Gekko, he won an Oscar for his performance. So it was a very good film, except that it was not a blockbuster that everybody would see. It was a cult movie that every business school student saw dozens and dozens of times. Some of you are studying business. So 10 years ago, if you were in a business school in America, Canada, anywhere in the world, you would watch this movie, and you will watch it dozens of times. And we will soon look at the heart of the message of the film, which was already there in Wall Street. The film was articulating what was already there. But the film, and the famous line from the film, became the driving force defining secularized free market economy, capitalism, and then became the cause of its collapse. So in the second film, he picks up again the same thing, and we'll come to that in a few minutes. What is the film's central message?
Greed is not only destroying the capitalism we did have, how Bud's father, worked, for his living, honestly, but it's also destroying, individual lives, like it destroyed Buds, like it destroyed geckos, sending them to jail. So it's the fact that greed, I think, is destroying the American lifestyle or the free market capitalism that we have.
Now, that is in fact the subtle message, but it was put so subtly that greed is destroying capitalism was the subtle message, the actual message Oliver Stone wanted to communicate. But what he's doing in the film is reflecting how Wall Street is running today. So the central message of the film actually is greed is good. In the second film, it becomes greed is not only good, it is now legal. So let's look at that.
The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of an evolutionary spirit. To greed in all of its forms. Greed for life, for money, for love, knowledge, has marked the upward surge of mankind, and greed, you mark my words, will not only save Teldar Paper, but that other malfunctioning corporation called the USA. Thank you very much.
And he's trying to take over a paper, Teldar Paper, and the management, which owns only 3% of the stock, Gordon Gekko has bought majority of the stock, and now he's taking over. So the management is really mad at him, and a stockholders general meeting is called together, and the vice president is saying, beware of this man who's taking over, he'll destroy the company. And he is justifying his action, and he is saying greed is good, greed works, it clarifies, it cuts through, it gets to the essence of the evolutionary spirit, which is the force behind the great surge of mankind. And he says, ladies and gentlemen, mark my words, greed will not only save this company, it will save that other malfunctioning corporation called the United States of America. That's his speech. So the film is an unpacking of that Wall Street is driven by greed. There was another actual stockbroker who was raiding companies, Ivan Bosky. So he was the one in '86 who sat at the University of California.
Ivan Bosky, a big-time stock trader, bet on corporate takeovers. On May 18th, 1986, at the University of California, Berkeley, he shared these lustrous pearls of wisdom with business school students. Greed is all right, by the way. I want you to know that. I think greed is healthy. You can be greedy and still feel good about yourself. Several months after the address, Bosky was nabbed by the SEC because his stock manipulations were often based on tips from corporate. Mr. Greed soon found himself in possession of a nice prison cell. Thanks to Oliver Stone, greed is good became the catchphrase for Wall Street callousness and excess.
Let's discuss this question. Why does Gordon Gekko believe that greed is good, and why has it become legal? So by the time he comes out of jail, he notices that now everybody is doing what he was doing in 1987. So why does he believe that greed is good? If there is no God, if there is no law from God, if individual orientation, what drives me, this is what drives me, therefore it is good. And the justification for it, of course, goes back to Adam Smith. Adam Smith, who systematized capitalism in his book, Wealth of the Nations. He said that as everyone pursues his self-interest, there is an invisible hand which turns your pursuit of self-interest into everyone's interest. So using that as the background, he is equating that pursuit of self-interest or pursuit of happiness as greed. Making lots of money makes me, yep.
Yeah, I think that's what comes to mind is the movie with the idea greed is good is a mischaracterization of capitalism. It's actually what our culture and Hollywood has characterized capitalism as, is there's winners and losers, where in reality the capitalistic system is about win-win. Like you just said, in my pursuit to make a living, I'm providing a service that benefits someone else. So both parties actually win in a true capitalistic model, and those who, for whatever reason, don't like that model seem to mischaracterize it as a win-lose model.
Well, thank you very much. You've put your finger on the heart of the issue, which we will actually come to at the end of this evening. He is, you will not, it won't make sense. He is mumbling things about Cambrian Explosion repeatedly in the beginning of the film and at the end of the film, and that mumbling has no direct relationship with the story. But here is what he says.
You want to know what the mother of all bubbles was? It came out of nowhere, by chance. They called it the Cambrian Explosion. It happened around 530 million years ago, and over the next 70 to 80 million years, the rate of evolution accelerated so fast that we came along, the human race. They still can't explain how that happened, except that it happened. Some people say it was by chance, others say design, but who really knows? What is the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. By that standard, most of us are insane, but not at the same time, and on the same basis we trust. But can this way of life endure if more and more people are insane at the same time? It becomes systematic, like cancer. What happens then? Like I said, the mother of all bubbles was the Cambrian Explosion, and it happened by chance over 500 million years ago. Scientists will tell you it was unprecedented. It happened in a flash, and from it suddenly the world had millions of new species, and from that was born us, the human race. Now, in that sense, bubbles are evolutionary. They kill excess. They lean out the herd, but they never die. They just come back in different forms. When they burst, they give birth to a new day, always creating change.
So what does greed actually do in the film?
I believe greed leads to some people getting very rich, and then ultimately going to jail.
So, but as we saw in that mumbling about Cambrian Explosion, the mother of all the bubbles, that these bubbles which create havoc for a lot of people die, a lot of businesses die, a lot of people become unemployed. On that occasion, many new species were born. So it is very destructive in the film and ultimately sends him to jail. But in reality, if you watch Inside Job, which you should, the real painful thing happens that Wall Street now controls Capitol Hill, the White House, the press. So the culprits, the corporate raiders, the greed-driven bankers and heads of insurance companies, etc., who bring upon this global worldwide economic crash of 2008, actually don't get punished. They get bailed out. They're too big to fall, President Bush says. So bail them out. What does that mean? They have made a mess of their companies, but the honest taxpayers must pay because they have borrowed money from China. Why does chance lead to superstition and slavery? Let's read the other mumbling which is happening in the background. You want to have someone read that for us?
What is the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. By that standard, most of us are insane, but not at the same time. And on that basis, we trust. But can this way of life endure if more and more people are insane at the same time? It becomes systematic, like cancer. What happens then?
It becomes systemic, like cancer. What happens then? The point here is, what is the basis on which you can trust another person? What the culture of chance is doing is destroying the foundation of trust, because it is destroying any basis for character, which is not pursuing self-interest but obeying commands, going against your self-interest, which is what Bond is doing in the first film that we saw repeatedly. So let's go on. So this is where we get into real Bible study. Francis Schaeffer, who died in 1984, his wife died 2 months ago. Edith Schaeffer, he had a huge impact on many of our generation. In his book, True Spirituality, he argued that before you break the 10th commandment, which is you shall not covet, you break the 10th commandment before you break any other commandment, because all the first 9 commandments are external. Don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't lie. They're all acts you do externally. But 10th commandment is inward, internal, that don't covet. It deals with what's going on in your heart. So this is this you have to break before you. So Eve, before she disobeys God by eating the fruit, she desires the fruit. She covets the fruit which she's not supposed to covet. So we want to see how in these films Schaeffer's thesis is in fact illustrated and the consequences of it. So let's go through the 10 commandments. We'll look a little bit. Let's skip this slide. Yeah. We also looked at, and then he goes on to say that you don't make graven images of anything. You don't put anything above me. Certainly nothing of nature. So we saw from these 10 commandments that the West became rational civilization because God gave a written law. If God has given a written text to illiterate people, they have to learn to read. He's not only asking us to read, he's asking us to learn to write. He's saying, copy this law, write it everywhere. Meditate upon it day and night. You have to think about it. Teach it. So a carpenter, a fisherman has to learn to read, to write, to meditate, think, and to teach. But how is this related, these 2 commandments? We are meditating a little bit more on these 2 commandments. How are these 2 commandments related to the West's economic freedom and success? So what do you think is the economic implication of these commandments?
Well, I've often seen the 10 commandments being circular, so that the 10th commandment and the first commandment are very alike in the fact that you shall not covet, you shall have no other gods before me. So in that sense, with the first 2 commandments, what we see in the movies is that money is being a god. Money is being placed before the God of Israel, and also that you should make yourself a graven image or any other likeness, or put nature in front of it. So in the movies, they place success, they place lust, they place others, you could say, because they use those dear to them to gain wealth or whatever. So it could be said that in this sense they break the first 2 commandments very easily.
Right. The film is breaking the first commandment because Jesus reduced these commandments to saying that you cannot serve both God and money. And greed is good is serving money, putting greed above everything else, above every moral principle, above every relationship. So yes, the film is breaking, the Wall Street is breaking these 2 commandments. But how are these commandments actually related to economic success? Economic development means harnessing natural resources, establishing our dominion over nature. If you worship cow, you make yourself incapable of manipulating cows genetically and breed to yield more milk. Societies that worship nature, and we will look at it more next Tuesday when we look at James Cameron film Avatar. Should we be worshiping nature? That's what the film is asking us, to break these commandments and worship nature. But in the biblical picture of God creating man in his image, he created the universe, natural world. He's above the universe. If we are made in his image, we are above creation. We are part of nature, but we also transcend nature because we are made in his image. And we are created to establish our dominion over nature, to rule over nature. That is economic development. The West developed because it was not worshipping nature, it was managing nature, ruling over nature. Of course, we should not make God's images because he has made his own image. And what is his image? Human beings. If you want to love and serve God's image, it is your neighbor you're supposed to love and serve. Right? Let's go to the 4th commandment. Why is the sequel called Wall Street Money Never Sleeps?
Because money is always constantly being made, and people are always constantly making money because they're working. So, and Wall Street is probably the heart of all of that, maybe.
And I think, you know, when you invest money, you can go to bed and it's still making money for a person.
The stock market is round the clock, around the globe. Money never sleeps. In one place, he compares it to a woman, a prostitute, who is keeping you awake whole night in your bed. You're sitting with her. That's what money is. He's explaining to his mentee, he's mentoring. So money never sleeps and doesn't let you sleep. God's command, God's objective in bringing slaves into freedom is so that they might have rest. When they were slaves, they were working every day. Now God is saying, you will work for 6 days, you will rest on seventh. He gives sleep to his beloved. And the full commandment is saying that your sons, your servants, your animals, everyone must have rest, because this is a promise, this is a symbol. You work for 6 days, I'll feed you for 7 days. You don't have to be a slave. And this is a symbol, you work for 6 years, I give you a rest, seventh year of rest. The land will rest. So let's go to the next commandment. What does greed do to Max Weber's Protestant work ethic? Now we're coming to the close of moving towards coveting. So the eighth commandment is, you shall not steal. How many of you have heard of Max Weber? Thank you. Well, he was a sociologist, one of the father of social sciences in Germany in the beginning of the 20th century. And his father was Lutheran, his mother was Calvinist, came from a Calvinist home. So one holiday he would go to the father's side of the family, other holiday he would go to the mother's side of the family. And as he was growing up and seeing both the Lutheran communities and the Calvinist communities, he was noticing that the Calvinists were doing, on the whole, not just his family, mother's family, but on the whole, the Calvinists were doing economically better than the Lutherans. And the Lutherans were doing better than the Catholics. And the Catholics nations were richer, doing better than the Muslims. So from there he developed that the factor that makes a difference to the economic life of a nation is religious culture. And he came to this thing of Protestant work ethic, which we will come to when we come to the 10th commandment. So let's move quickly to the 9th commandment, which is, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. How does breaking the 9th commandment drive Gecko's story? The whole success, ability to raid other companies, depends on information. You're dependent on information which is not documented. Therefore, misinformation works just as effectively. And Bud Fox is actually, when he begins to manipulate the exchange stock market in order to hurt Gecko, he's giving misinformation. But also in the second film, the good broker, corporate leader, when he commits suicide, it's because he's a victim of his rival spreading misinformation about him, bearing false witness. So greed, you shall not bear false witness. Both the films are saying that so much of the mess in Wall Street, because it is dependent on undigested information which nobody knows, there's plenty of room for the liar to come in and bear false witness, which destroys lives and destroys whole companies. Well, you have to see the film to make that point. But let's go to the 10th commandment finally, to see the Schaeffer's point and to see the heart of the problem with the film. Exodus 20:17 is, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his manservant, or his maidservant, or his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. So do you break the 10th commandment when you seek to turn your $5 million into $10 million? That's the question. which comes to the heart of Christian capitalism and secularized or evolutionary capitalism. Supposing you have $5 million and you want to turn it into $10 million. Is that greed?
Kind of going off what Scott said a little bit, it depends on the method, but it also depends on your motivation to do it. If your motivation is to be a good steward for your money, then it's not greed. But if you're doing it just to have more money, to do worldly or selfish things with it, to make an easier life for yourself, then I think that would be wrong.
So seeking greatness, seeking success, seeking crown, seeking glory is good if your intention is to glorify God. And that's what God is saying, the command, you shall not covet. How are you going to turn your 5 million into 10? Don't covet, don't steal, create, think, develop your skills, work hard, learn management, learn business, learn productivity. And Bud's father and others in Wall Street, the senior people, this is the lesson they're keeping on telling, and they appear to be out of it. So, thank you for raising that question, and we will continue that, because this is a theme which requires altering a paradigm. We really need to get this message being debated around the country. So it will force you to get back into history, back into the Word of God, back into theology, and even if we make mistakes, let's get started. Thank you.